1662. The Fitzwilliam Notebook. Inside the small leather-bound journal rests the confession of a 19-year-old university student. A list. A very specific list of exactly 57 sins. He was keeping a tally. Some are mundane. Sin number 1, making pies on Sunday night, a Sabbath breaker. Sin number 2, punching my sister. Then, stealing cherry cobs from Edward's store. Petty theft, sibling rivalry. But then you reach the darkness. It is chilling. Threatening my father and Mother Smith to burn them and the house over them. We have gone from baking pies to contemplating double homicide and arson against his own family. A volatile mix. And the man behind this angst-filled, violent confession is not who you think. It is Sir Isaac Newton. Forget the marble statue. Forget the stoic figure in the powdered wig, holding a prism, looking serene. Forget the Disney version, where a rational genius gets bonked on the head by an apple, and physics simply happens. That is a lie. The reality found in these notebooks is infinitely more chaotic. Welcome to History Titans. Before we shatter the myth of the most famous scientist in history, make sure you are subscribed and have joined our community. You will not want to miss what comes next. Today, we take a sledgehammer to that marble statue. The man in the court records and private letters was not just a scientist. He was an alchemist, obsessed with the occult. A religious heretic who risked prison for his beliefs. A ruthless detective who hunted men down in the London underworld. A vindictive academic politician who tried to erase his enemies from history. Science was just one facet of a very complicated diamond. Where how did a premature baby, abandoned by his mother and obsessed with the apocalypse, become the architect of the modern world? We must start with the trauma. Christmas Day, 1642. The height of the English Civil War. A chaotic time. In a small manor house in Woolsthorpe, Newton is born. He was premature. The sources say he was tiny enough to fit inside a quart mug. A literal beer mug. That is how frail he was. 2 women were sent to get medicine, and they did not expect him to be alive when they returned. He entered the world, clinging to life by a thread. He was already an orphan. His father, also named Isaac, had died 3 months prior. Fatherless, physically weak. Then came the defining moment, the abandonment. When Isaac was 3 years old, his mother, Hannah, remarried. She chose a wealthy clergyman named Barnabas Smith. He was 63 years old. And Smith had one specific condition for the marriage. He did not want the stepson. He did not want the 3-year-old boy. Hannah made her choice. She chose her new husband. She moved to a nearby village and left Isaac behind with his grandmother. She started a new life without him. He did not see her for 7 years. 7 years. This explains the sin in the notebook, threatening my father and Mother Smith to burn them and the house over them. It was not teenage angst. It was a festering wound of rejection, deep rage. He hated his stepfather with a burning passion. It created a pattern for his entire existence. Newton felt like an outsider, suspicious, secretive, convinced the world was conspiring against him. Isolation became his defense. He did not play with other children. He turned inward. And there, in the solitude, we see the first sparks of mechanical genius. He built things, intricate models, water clocks that kept perfect time, sundials carved into the stone wall of the house, accurate to the minute. He was obsessed with measuring time and motion. He built a working model of a windmill, but there was no wind inside his room, so he powered it with a mouse. He called the mouse his miller. He built a treadmill for the creature, which turned the sails. He was trying to control his environment through mechanics. Yet academically, he was no prodigy. The records say he was idle, inattentive, a daydreamer at the bottom of his class. So what changed? How do you go from the lazy kid doodling on walls to Isaac Newton? Violence, a schoolyard fight. There was a bully, a boy physically bigger and ranked higher in the class. One day, this boy kicked Newton in the stomach, and Newton, the quiet, solitary fragility, finally snapped. He challenged the bully to a fight in the churchyard, and he won. He fought with a feral intensity. The sources tell us he did not just beat the boy. He rubbed his nose against the church wall until the bully surrendered. That is brutal. But here is the truly revealing moment. The part of the story that defines him. Physical victory was not enough. He realized that even though he had beaten the boy with his fists, the bully still ranked higher than him in class. He could not stand that. He swore right then and there that he would destroy him intellectually too. It was pure spite. His academic genius was fueled by sheer competitiveness. I will outsmart you because I hate you. It is a pattern we will see again and again. Newton is never more productive than when he has a rival to destroy. A fascinating, terrifying motivation. It worked. He climbed to the top of the class, but it became clear he was not cut out to be a farmer. His mother pulled him out of school to manage the estate, and he was terrible at it. The sheep would wander off while he was lost in a book or calculating the flow of a stream. Finally, his uncle and his old headmaster intervened. They convinced his mother that the boy's future was in academia. In 1661, he heads to Trinity College, Cambridge, but not as a privileged gentleman scholar. He enters as a sizar, a servant student. Imagine the humiliation for someone with his pride and deep-seated insecurity. He is waiting on boys who are socially superior, but in his mind, intellectually, vastly inferior. It fueled the chip on his shoulder enormously. It reinforced his isolation. He spent all his time alone in the library. The official curriculum at Cambridge was still medieval. It was all Aristotle. They taught that the earth was the center of the universe, that everything was made of earth, air, fire, and water. Newton ignored all of it. He ignored his professors. He read the moderns on his own. Descartes, Galileo, Kepler. He dove into cutting-edge mathematics that was not even on the syllabus. This is where he writes that famous line in his notebook. Amicus Plato, amicus Aristoteles, magus amica veritas. Plato is my friend, Aristotle is my friend, but my best friend is truth. It was a declaration of intellectual independence. He was saying, I respect the old authorities, but if the evidence points somewhere else, I am going with the evidence. And he was about to get a lot of time to follow that evidence. Just as he finishes his degree in 1665, the world falls apart. The Great Plague. It rips through London and spreads to Cambridge. The university shuts its doors. Everyone is sent home. Newton packs his bags and returns to that same farm at Woolsthorpe. This begins what historians call the Annus Mirabilis, the year of miracles, 18 months of forced isolation. He is 24 years old, no professors, no students to wait on, no chamber pots, just quiet, time, and his own brain. And in that quiet, he basically invents the modern world. It is not hyperbole. First, mathematics. He invents calculus. He called it the method of fluxions. Why was it necessary? Because standard algebra and geometry describe static things. A square is a square. Its properties are fixed. But nature is not fixed. Nature is motion. An apple falling from a tree is accelerating. Its velocity is constantly changing. The math of the time could not describe the speed of that apple at a single instant in time, because in an instant, it is not moving. It was Zeno's paradox. So Newton developed a new mathematical language. He figured out how to calculate the rate of change of a curve at any given point. Differentiation. He figured out how to calculate the area under that curve. Integration. He created the language of motion. Without it, you cannot have modern physics. You cannot build a bridge or send a rocket to the moon. He did this in his bedroom, put the papers in a drawer, and characteristically told no one for decades. This brings us to the second miracle, optics, the nature of light. He was willing to completely demolish centuries of established wisdom. Everyone from Aristotle to Descartes believed that white light was pure, a divine substance. They believed color was something added to the light. They thought that when light passed through a prism, the glass somehow corrupted or modified the pure white light to create red or blue. The glass was doing the work. Newton decided to test this in his farmhouse bedroom. He created a camera obscura, He blacked out the room, drilled a tiny hole in the window shutter, and let a single beam of sunlight shine through. He put a prism in the path of the beam. Just as everyone had seen before, it created a rainbow on the far wall, a spectrum. But that was not the new part. The new part is the experimentum crucis, the crucial experiment. He took a board with another small slit in it. He used it to isolate just one color from that spectrum. Let us say he isolated the red ray. So now, all he has is a single beam of pure red light traveling across his room. I'm with you. He puts a second prism in the path of that single red beam. If the old theory was right, the second prism should modify the light again. It should turn purple or something, but it didn't. The red light went through the second prism and stayed red. It bent, but it didn't change color, which proves that color is a fundamental property of light itself. It is not the glass. Boom, 2,000 years of philosophy gone. He proved that white light is not pure. It is a mixture, a soup of all colors combined. The prism does not create the colors, it sorts them. This was a fundamental shift in how we see reality, and it had immediate practical applications. He realized this was why telescopes using lenses always had fuzzy images with colored fringes. Chromatic aberration. The lens was acting like a prism. So he thought, I can't use a lens, I need to use mirrors. He invented the reflecting telescope, using a curved mirror to gather light. It is the same basic design we use in the Hubble Space Telescope today. He built the first one himself, grinding the mirror and casting the metal in his own furnace. Then, the third pillar of the year of miracles. The big one. Gravity. The apple. Let us clear this up. There was no cartoon concussion, no bonk on the head, leading to instant enlightenment. But the story comes from Newton himself. Late in life, he told William Stukeley and Voltaire that he was sitting in the garden at Woolsthorpe, in a contemplative mood, when he saw an apple fall. The insight was not that gravity exists. People had seen things fall before. The insight was about scale, universality. Newton looked at the apple falling to the ground, and then he looked up at the moon. And he asked a radical question. Is the force pulling that apple the exact same force holding the moon in its orbit? For all of human history, people believed the heavens and earth were separate realms. Earth was corrupt and heavy. Things fell down. Heavens were perfect and ethereal. Things moved in circles. Newton smashed those two worlds together. He said, no, the rules are the same everywhere. The universe is governed by a single universal law. He is saying the moon is falling. That is the key. The moon is falling toward the earth, just like the apple. It just has so much sideways velocity that it constantly misses. It is in a perpetual state of falling around the earth. That is the cosmic leap. He did the math with his new calculus. He showed that gravity weakens with the square of the distance. His calculations for the moon matched perfectly. He had unified the cosmos in a single equation. It is beautiful, poetic. But before we get carried away with the serene genius, we must talk about the darker side of his curiosity. The Bodkin incident. It is gruesome, but it explains everything. He wanted to understand how the eye perceives color, specifically how pressure affects vision. A reasonable question, an unreasonable method. He took a bodkin, a thick, blunt needle, like an awl for sewing leather. He inserted it into his own eye socket, between his eye and the bone. He slid it in as far back as he could. Then he pressed the needle against the back of his eyeball to deform its shape. He wanted to see what colored circles and flashes it would produce. He was cataloging the results. He poked his own eye with a needle for science. This is not normal behavior. It is obsession. He saw his own body as just another piece of lab equipment. He was willing to risk his sight for the truth. My best friend is truth. He meant it literally. The plague ends. He returns to Cambridge. His work gets him appointed as the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics. He invents the reflecting telescope and gets elected to the Royal Society. On the surface, he is the model academic. But if you walked past his rooms late at night, you wouldn't hear equations. You would hear the roar of a furnace. You would smell sulfur, mercury, charcoal. Because the real work Newton was doing in secret was not physics. It was alchemy. The father of modern science was a sorcerer. He would have called it chemistry, but he was searching for the philosopher's stone, the power to transmute lead into gold. Why would the man who explained the rainbow waste his time on magic? Because for Newton, there was no line between science and magic. They were one quest. He was searching for the Prisca Sapientia, the primal wisdom. He believed the ancients, the Egyptians, the Chaldeans, knew profound secrets lost to time. He was not an innovator, he was a rediscoverer. He didn't care about the gold. He was searching for something he called the vegetative spirit. Gravity was a passive force. It explained motion, but it didn't explain life. Gravity was a passive force. It explained motion, but it did not explain life. It did not explain why a tree grows or how minerals form inside the earth. Newton believed there had to be a vegetative spirit, a way for God to actively interact with matter. He thought alchemy was the key. He was looking for the universe's source code. He was consumed by it. He wrote over 1 million words on alchemy, vastly more than he wrote on physics. His notebooks are filled with cryptic codes and bizarre recipes. The green lion devouring the sun, the star Regulus of antimony. This had to be kept secret. Alchemy was technically illegal in England, a felony. If he had been caught, he could have been arrested and his career ruined. But there was another secret he was hiding, a much bigger one, the most dangerous one of all, his religious beliefs. This was the real high-wire act of his life. Newton was profoundly religious, but he was not orthodox. He studied the Bible with the same forensic intensity that he studied nature, and he came to a conclusion that was, for the time, utterly terrifying. He decided that the doctrine of the Trinity was a lie, a complete fraud. He believed that in the 4th century, the early church, specifically a bishop named Athanasius, had deliberately corrupted the scriptures to insert the idea of the Trinity. He rejected it completely. He believed in one singular God, the Father. To Newton, Jesus was the Son of God, a divine Messiah, but he was created by God. He was subordinate. He was not God himself. He was an Arian, a Unitarian. He believed that worshiping Jesus as co-equal to God was idolatry, the worst sin imaginable. The irony is staggering. He is a fellow at Trinity College, Cambridge. It is the ultimate double life. And it almost cost him everything. To keep his position, he was required by law to be ordained as a priest in the Church of England. That meant swearing a public oath to the 39 Articles, including the Trinity. An oath he literally could not take. His conscience would not allow it. He was packing his bags. He was ready to resign. He was saved by powerful friends. At the absolute last minute, a special royal dispensation came down from King Charles II. It exempted the Lucasian professor of mathematics, and only him, from the requirement of taking holy orders. It was an incredibly close call. If his private papers, like an historical account of 2 notable corruptions of Scripture, had been discovered, he would have been finished. He was a Nicodemite, a hidden believer. Now, the man revealing the clockwork of the universe was living in constant fear of being exposed. But eventually, the public genius had to publish again. This brings us to 1684, the famous visit from Edmund Halley. Halley, the famous astronomer, comes to Cambridge with a question that all the great minds in London are wrestling with. Isaac, if gravity follows an inverse square law, what path would a planet's orbit trace? Newton answers immediately, an ellipse. Halley is floored. This is the answer they have all been searching for. He asks, how do you know? Newton says, why? I have calculated it. Halley asks to see the proof. Newton starts rummaging through his famously chaotic study. Piles of books, alchemical notes, mathematical scribbles everywhere. And he cannot find it. He says, oh, I must have misplaced the paper. It is the ultimate academic flex. The secret of the solar system? I solved that years ago. It is on a napkin here somewhere. Halley convinces him to write it out again. That promise grows until it becomes the single most important scientific book ever written. Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica. The Principia. It changed everything. It laid out the 3 laws of motion. It mathematically defined universal gravity. It showed that the universe was not a mystery run by capricious spirits. It was a grand, predictable machine governed by mathematical laws. We moved from philosophy to physics. But with publication comes conflict. This brings him back into the orbit of his old enemy, Robert Hooke. Hooke was the curator of experiments for the Royal Society. A brilliant polymathic mind, but prickly and insecure. He had criticized Newton's early work on light, claiming the ideas were not original. Newton, pathologically thin-skinned, went nuclear. He threatened to withdraw from public life entirely. He held that grudge for decades. This is the context for that famous quote. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Today, we hear it as a beautiful expression of humility. But the context is everything. He wrote that line in a letter to Robert Hooke. And Robert Hooke suffered from a spinal deformity. He was physically short. He had a stooped, hunched posture. When Newton writes about standing on the shoulders of giants, it is a vicious, sarcastic jab. He is saying, I am a giant, and you are a dwarf. It was savage. He waited until Robert Hooke died in 1703 before he would agree to publish his full masterwork on light, the Optics. He literally waited for his rival to be in the ground. Then comes the next very strange chapter, a total pivot. In 1696, he leaves Cambridge. He leaves academia. He moves to London for a government job. He becomes the warden of the Royal Mint. It is like Einstein deciding to quit physics to go run the Treasury Department. It makes no sense on the surface. He was probably burnt out. He had suffered a severe nervous breakdown a few years earlier, in 1693, his black year. He wrote paranoid, delusional letters to his friends, accusing them of plotting against him. He needed a change of scenery. The job at the Mint was supposed to be a sinecure, easy money, a cushy government post where you sign a few papers and collect a fat paycheck. But Isaac Newton does not do cushy. When he arrived, he found an institution in crisis. The money itself was broken. England's currency was old, hand-hammered silver. It wasn't perfectly round. This led to a massive problem, clipping. It was simple. You take a pair of shears, snip the edges of the coin, keep the silver shavings to melt down and sell, and then pass the clipped coin at full face value. The currency was literally shrinking. Some bags had lost almost half their silver weight. It was causing rampant inflation and destroying the economy. The government decided on a great recoinage. They had to recall every silver coin in the kingdom and remint them with milled edges, those little ridges that make tampering obvious. Newton was in charge of this massive industrial operation. He attacked it with obsessive energy. He turned the Tower of London into a factory. He conducted time and motion studies. He slept at the Mint, working around the clock. But he realized the bigger problem was not clipping. It was counterfeiting, the coiners. And here emerges Newton the detective. He found existing laws useless, so he had himself appointed a justice of the peace. This gave him the authority to lead investigations. He went undercover. He built a network of spies and informants. He paid people to hang out in the seediest taverns and brothels of London, listening for gossip. He personally cross-examined over 100 suspects. It is hard to square this image with the author of the Principia, but it is the same mind. He hated chaos. A counterfeit coin was a lie, a corruption of truth. He was going to purge it. He found his nemesis, William Challoner, the Moriarty to his Sherlock. Challoner was a master counterfeiter, a con artist, incredibly intelligent and flamboyant, and he openly mocked the Mint's incompetence. He even testified before Parliament that he could run the place better than Newton. He taunted Isaac Newton, a fatal mistake. Newton became obsessed with bringing him down. He spent years building the case, tracking witnesses, flipping associates. He was relentless, and he got him. Challoner was convicted of high treason. From prison, he wrote desperate letters to Newton begging for mercy. "Oh, dear sir, nobody can save me but you." Newton showed him none. He was a stone wall. Challoner was hanged, drawn, and quartered at Tyburn, a barbaric execution, and Newton watched it happen. He was a man of Old Testament justice. In cleaning up the currency, he also accidentally reshaped the global economy, the gold standard. In 1717, and he had to set the official exchange rate between silver coins and the gold guinea. He did the math, but he got it slightly wrong. He overvalued gold. This triggered Gresham's law: bad money drives out good. Because silver was undervalued, people hoarded it or sold it abroad. Gold became the de facto currency. He inadvertently put Britain on a gold standard, shaping international finance for the next 200 years. Another accidental, world-changing discovery. He has conquered physics, reformed the economy, hanged the bad guys. Now, the final phase. Newton the Tyrant. In 1703, his enemy Robert Hooke dies. Newton finally agrees to become president of the Royal Society. He rules with an iron fist for 24 years. The ego comes roaring out. The prime example is the Calculus War. Newton versus Leibniz. Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, a brilliant German polymath, independently developed his own version of calculus. Crucially, he published it first in 1684, with a much better notation system that we still use today. But Newton had invented it first, back in the 60s, and kept it secret. When Leibniz got the credit, Newton and his supporters were enraged. They accused him of plagiarism. It became an ugly, nationalistic feud. Newton decided he would impartially settle the dispute. He set up a committee to investigate. He packed it with his loyal supporters. But it gets worse. When the committee was done, Newton secretly wrote their final report himself, the Commercium Epistolicum. It concluded that he was the sole inventor, and Leibniz was a thief. Then he wrote an anonymous review of his own report for the Society's journal, praising its brilliance and fairness. Or he rigged the trial, wrote the verdict, and wrote a 5-star review of the verdict. It destroyed Leibniz's reputation. He died, poorer and disgraced. Newton boasted that he took great satisfaction in breaking Leibniz's heart, purely vindictive. And he pulled a similar move on John Flamsteed, the astronomer royal. Flamsteed had spent his life meticulously mapping the stars. It was his life's work. Newton needed that star data for his theories on lunar motion. And Flamsteed, being a perfectionist, refused to release it until it was double-checked. Newton could not wait. He used his political power as president of the Royal Society to literally seize Flamsteed's data. He published it against his will with Halley as the editor. He stole the man's entire life's work. Flamsteed was incensed. He managed to track down and buy up 300 of the 400 unauthorized copies. He built a bonfire in the middle of the observatory courtyard and personally burned them all. Newton the Tyrant. He saw knowledge as his personal property, and he would crush anyone who stood in his way. But despite the cruelty and the pettiness, he was a national hero. In 1705, Queen Anne knighted him. He was the first scientist ever to receive that honor, Sir Isaac Newton. It was a landmark moment. He became an icon. But time catches up to everyone. In his 80s, his health began to fail. He suffered terribly from gout and bladder stones. It was agonizing. He died in his sleep on March 20th, 1727. He was 84 years old. The funeral was an event, a state occasion fit for a king, or he was buried in Westminster Abbey, among the monarchs of England. Voltaire was in London at the time, and he was amazed. He wrote that England honors a mathematician, as other nations honor a conquering king. He was right. It marked a shift in civilization. The hero was no longer just the warrior. It was the man of science. For all the arrogance and vindictiveness, we must end with one quote from his later years. It shows that deep down, he had a sense of perspective. It is the most beautiful and humble thing he ever said. I do not know what I may appear to the world, but to myself, I seem to have been only like a boy playing on the seashore, finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, while the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. The great ocean of truth. It suggests that for all his immense ego, he understood the true scale of what he did not know. He knew he had only scratched the surface. So, what is the final picture? You simply cannot separate the genius from the madness. You cannot have one without the other. The same obsessive, paranoid, relentless drive that made him destroy Robert Hooke and Gottfried Leibniz is the exact same drive that made him solve the riddle of gravity. It was all a desperate need for order, a desperate need for certainty. Whether it was the motion of the planets, the text of the Bible, or the purity of the nation's currency, he had to find the absolute truth and impose order on the chaos. He was that abandoned little boy, still trying to build a fortress of perfect knowledge, to protect himself from a hostile world. A difficult, vindictive, heretical, brilliant, and ultimately indispensable man. He built the intellectual world we still live in today. You will never look at a rainbow or a coin the same way again. Nor should you. There is a universe in both. If you enjoyed uncovering the dark, brilliant, and truly complete life of Isaac Newton, make sure you subscribe to History Titans. We have a huge library of these audio biographies just waiting for you. Like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts and share it with a friend who thinks the whole story is just about an apple. Trust us, they do not know the half of it. We will see you in the next one.